Hello, everyone. Welcome to the House of Royale, episode number 8. I have a very powerful human that is going to change history for women and is going to educate the world on women. She already is. Literally teaching at NYU. Let me introduce to you the sex tech NYU graduate feminist icon, Vaughn!
Thank you so much.
Yes, Vaughn. Oh my God, this is such an honor. Thank you for coming here.
Thanks for having me.
And doing this interview. I feel like, what is your opinion on how far away we are from society being educated on women?
Oh my God, what a question.
Just to set the tone for this interview, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that there will forever be so much to go, but I think what I try to shine more of a light on is there's actually a lot more spaces that are moving in the right direction than are broadcasted and then are given visibility. There's actually a lot of spaces and a lot of communities that we could learn so much from that I just don't think have enough of the spotlight.
Yes.
To show that. So it's not like they're not here, they're just not as visible.
Yeah. Okay, well, you guys, just so we can get to know Vaughn, let's start from the beginning, where you grew up and how you got into the music industry. But I feel like I'm sitting here getting ready to receive a therapy session from you because I come from a religious background as well, which is a huge reason as to why I feel like I became an exotic dancer, and my whole opinion on men and women and how we coexist is in another planet.
Totally.
So, okay, let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Pennsylvania in a pretty traditional suburb, and we didn't really have traditional sex ed or any holistic sex ed programming. And it was a super traditional town. Everyone for the most part has a pretty linear experience. And then I had never really been outside of that town for my whole life until I went to school in New York City, and then my brain exploded.
Yeah, I've never been to Pennsylvania.
You're not missing that much.
What is the capital? Is there
the capital is Harrisburg.
Harrisburg, okay.
There's a reason you've never heard of Harrisburg.
No, I've heard of Harrisburg. I haven't, swear to God.
But yeah, Pennsylvania's at least where I grew up, there wasn't a ton of urge for me to want really big things for myself, I would say. No one in my family is creative at all.
Wow.
So I feel from my family members, I got definitely my more linear brain. And I was so hard to raise. My poor parents, they were so honestly God bless them now, because I was just tough. And I think that from studying, I went to public school. My brothers went to all boys private Catholic school. We went to church on Sundays, and I went to catechism and did all the things you're supposed to do as a good Catholic gal. And I think I remember I would just always ask why constantly. My poor parents, I'd be I was why is the sky blue? And they're because it is. I'm why? And I was just annoying to them. But it turned into a quality that I'm obviously super grateful for now. But I think my biggest questions as a kid, I was why? And when I read these stories at face value, one of my favorite stories in the Bible is when there's this woman who's committed adultery and they're about to stone her, and Jesus walks in and is okay, any of you who have never sinned, throw the first stone. And then no one throws a stone. And as a kid, I'm oh, sick. We respect everyone. We don't judge anyone. Totally got it. Makes sense. And then I was always so confused on how the face value of those stories were co-opted to actually produce a culture that was really different.
Are you all listening? All of you Catholic family members that think I'm going to hell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's when you trace it back, it was just a lot of hypocrisy. And I found that when I would ask why, I was met with a lot of because, which has been my biggest red flag now as an adult. If you ask why and someone says because, red flag, alert.
Right.
Immediately something is going on. And yeah, then I went to to New York for school, and while I was at school, I studied abroad in Berlin. So my brain was like quite literally like absolutely exploding on itself. And when I was in Berlin, I was just kind of curious. Like I was just curious because it was so different than obviously what I'd grown up with, this idea of like having sex clubs and having such a, kink positive culture. And I would go to a bunch of sex clubs alone, mostly just because I was like, what is this? This is so
Wow.
interesting. And like I'm alone in a club without my phone, without my clothes, in a language I don't speak well. And I felt 10 times more comfortable in those spaces than I did like in a turtleneck at New York City brunch.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is so interesting. Why? And I feel like my entire kind of artistic practice thus far has just been diving into the why of that.
Because the states are all about fear and shame and guilt and controlling the public with fear, right? Like,
But we learn communication after the fact. Like you don't learn communication in holistic sex ed programs or just like even just in health class. Like you don't learn communication as a important facet. You learn that if you're lucky enough through personal experience
yeah.
after you've already had formative ones. So you usually learn communication on a basis of unlearning, not on a fundamental development
Yeah.
level, which is a massive issue.
Why is Europe so different from the States? Like, what
I
happened?
don't know if necessarily, I mean, this issue exists everywhere, right? There's definitely parts of Europe that are way more progressive in this
Right.
ideology, but I think that in a lot of ways, bodily autonomy is more deeply ingrained in culture and blunt communication is more deeply ingrained in culture. Like, for example, at a lot of these clubs, I would have people come tap me on the shoulder with like a super respectful distance from my personal space, be like, hi, would you like to have sex with me and my partner? And you'd be like, and I don't know. And they're like, oh, okay, no. Would you like a drink? Here's a drink. You're so beautiful. Bye. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Or
Right.
like you bought me a drink and I'm not fending you off for the rest of the night. Like such small,
Yeah.
small things. But, in these clubs, it was like kids who were like 17 up to like adults that were like 70 years old.
Mhm.
And everyone could kind of get with the program. So I think it's more so I try to focus less on like, why is it so different? And more of like, oh, there's all this proof that doesn't have to be,
Mhm.
you know?
'Cause I think a lot of women who are in, like, serious relationships are like, "Well, if I tell him he's allowed to, maybe that will make it, less taboo, and then maybe he won't go and cheat or lie."
Interesting.
But it's still like most women I think are just assuming he's probably going to cheat and lie just because that's been the narrative in America
Mm.
for so long. And like the narrative in Y2K, like all movies
Mm.
and TV shows before like 2011. I mean, I'll watch a movie from back then and I'm just like, wow, the way that we cast these women and the script and like how we treat the women, like it's really just like being this hot girl that's dumb and the man dominating her. And now in relationships, it's like America's trying to give women all this power and
Mm.
like women are coming into power, which we are, but now we're seeing Gen Z, like no one wants to get married, no one wants to have children. Why would we put ourselves through that when there's no trust? There's no like now like that's the why. Like why the fuck are we continuing to do the same thing over and over again when we know it doesn't work?
Yeah.
So that's like for me I'm like, I wish I was a full-blown lesbian because I don't wanna be attracted to men anymore. Like, it's
Well, I think it's so much like I think we really don't understand the gravity of like what we watch. Like you are what you eat, what you consume, what you listen to, what you see in pop culture, what you see in advertisements. Like all of those things have deep-rooted compounded effects on how you see yourself and how you see the world and how you see dynamics. Me personally, like I'm not a person that believes in monogamy for myself,
Mhm.
and I've been in super committed relationships under that pretense,
Yeah.
which even into that, like there's just been so few examples of ethical non-monogamy in pop culture that I feel like I'm flying blind a lot of the times to try to figure it out.
Mhm.
And even more so, like, this is why I feel like it's so important for people making art and people in positions of power that are able to tell narratives in pop culture to ingrain these messages in them because that's how we learn. Like, that's how you go back to ground zero and start building from scratch. It's like when you're in preschool and you see things for the first time and you are picking up words and you're reading stories, like, those things mean something. and they hold a ton of gravity. And I think we can all trace back to like little pieces of pop culture that have since had to be unlearned
Yeah.
from us. And so I think, yeah, I have a very big goal, within my creative community to produce things that offer another narrative.
Yes. And before we get to your music and you being a female producer, which is such a huge deal, because only 2% of music producers are women, and that's fucked up. So the other day,
Mhm.
I know I'm super ADHD, so you have to forgive me.
Yeah,
I'm all
give
over
it
the
to
place.
me.
So many questions. The other day, I went on Spotify and I typed in lesbian rappers. Can't find any. Okay, there's a few. But like, I feel like Queen Herbie is onto something. Like, yes, she's married to a straight man,
Mhm.
but lyrically, she's changing the narrative. It's like all about women empowerment. And she's kind of mocking the whole sugar daddy, like Kardashian lifestyle.
Mhm.
Like women that like fly around the world and you're like, how are they in Dubai for free? Like, what is happening? She's kind of like mocking that lifestyle and kind of like reminding women like, hey, you don't need to do that. Like, you're enough.
Mhm.
I would like to see female rappers with a different lyrical content coming with that narrative. Like, instead of like, fuck him, get money, get the bag, or whatever we're
Yeah.
rapping about. Like, it's just crazy to me that I couldn't find anything on Spotify.
Interesting.
And
Very
then it's a
interesting.
huge reminder, like, we're still at the beginning of the road
Yeah.
when it comes to sex ed and sex tech. And I can't believe I feel so anti-marriage, anti-children because I'm just like, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that, goes back to say that, which is a whole other conversation about like tech barriers to entry and, infrastructural barriers to entry within, the entertainment industry in general. But like there are so many artists that are breaking these barriers that just aren't given proper visibility, which is part
Yes.
of the issue, right? Like, I mean, even in a more mainstream contest, like I think Meg Thee Stallion is one of like the most like prolific artists ever. I think she's been so incredible. Young M.A. is incredible. 070 Shake. Like there's so many women that are really pushing alternate narratives. And I don't want to say alternate, I want to say like real, like the
Yeah.
actual narratives that most people undergo.
Yeah.
But there's such a lineage that has come from women like that have broken barriers that just don't have the same visibility.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating.
Like we've always had Madonna.
Yeah.
And I mean, thank God she's continued to be that bitch. Like
Mhm.
she's never backed down
Yeah.
from that narrative. So thank you, Madonna. But
I just saw Janet Jackson on tour,
oh, nice.
which
Oh,
was
yeah.
life-changing.
Yeah.
And even that was so interesting. Like, there's been artists around for so long that have done like Janet Jackson is prolific.
Yep.
Janet Jackson is like one of the most impressive pop stars we've ever had, ever. And
Yeah.
there's so many reasons why that's not like colloquially agreed upon or like as understood as a Madonna, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so many deep-rooted things that have been so prevalent for so long that make me very excited to, continue entering into new generations of understanding. But
Yeah.
I think that there's so much to learn too from like pre-existing lineages, just in different ways than they've been presented to us prior.
Watching Janet, like there was a documentary, right, about how she was dealing with the Justin Timberlake response.
Totally.
And now all these years later, having somebody like Justin Timberlake apologizing to multiple women.
Yeah.
And it's like it wasn't necessarily his fault either because he has 20 people telling him this is what you're going to say.
Right.
Because that was the Y2K branding and narrative is like, he's like the guy, he didn't mean to do it. And she's like the scandalous woman that
Right.
it's all her fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is so insane. And it was even crazier to see someone as powerful as Janet be silenced.
100%.
And I mean, it's still scary speaking up and being a whistleblower or like standing up for yourself because we still get called all of these names when we do that.
Totally.
But I mean, it is slowly getting better with the documentaries coming out, like Epstein, Weinstein, R. Kelly, like fucking who's the pudding guy? I always forget his name.
The pudding guy?
Bill Cosby.
Not the pudding guy. Yeah, I mean, there's a long list. And the list, unfortunately, like,
I have my own list of men that are still powerful men in the music industry, and I would love to say your first and last names.
my tell-all is going to be so thick.
Oh, you're going to do one?
One day I have to. Are you kidding? I can't wait for my tell-all. First and last names. First and last names.
Bitch.
Unique identifiers. Yeah. But I think it's also like, I was having this conversation with someone when, during specifically when Harvey Weinstein was going through trial. And they were like, why is it that, all of these people in power are turning out to be so bad? And I was like, I actually think, unfortunately, what we're learning is it requires a lot of really shitty qualities to be a person in a lot of power. I think it's the opposite way around. And so what I'm excited about is, putting people in power who are changing what the barriers of entry are, where it's like, actually, no, we don't want you to be shitty, or giving priority to people that are building community, not building like monolithic structures of overarching power.
Well, all of these men, a lot of them end up going to jail because they're all about the money and getting the bag, right? Like they want to be billionaires. Like Armie Hammer's great-grandfather. I mean, I just watched that documentary, and it's just like all about the money and fraud and like, how do we get more money illegally?
Yeah.
I feel like men are just so like, my dick, my money. Yeah. Like, whereas like women have such a huge problem visualizing themselves as a millionaire, because women are like caretakers, and we're like, mom, we're here to like teach and like take care of people, and that's why it's so fucked up when we see these amazing savages like Whitney Cummings or Chelsea Handler, who are like single with no kids and they're millionaires, and it's like, oh shit, like there's such a fine line between being like the stereotypical woman, right? Like what is a woman in a man's mind? Like we're weak, we're small, we're not as strong as them. We're not as smart as them. Like, we're not as savage as them because we have a period and we can't handle it. It's like,
I think it also goes like multiple ways, right? Like, it's one thing where you're deduced to something negative, but I think it's also like, because of what you said too about movies and about pop culture and just the media that we consume from like such a developmental age, women are rarely broadcasted in all of their dimensions. I know even for me, that's something that's very stressful. Like, I would say I'm like a pretty nice person.
Yeah.
I'm pretty like even keeled. And people who I only like are just like I'm Instagram friends with, or I've only seen them at like a show or when I'm doing my job. When I will meet them later in real life, I've had this said to me so many times. They're like, I thought you were going to be 9 feet tall and a huge cunt. And I'm like, okay, so one, I'm doing my job right.
Yes,
great.
yeah.
But two, like, that's so crazy. Like, actually, I can be. There's a lot of times where I feel 9 feet tall and I can be like a huge cunt.
Yeah.
But I'm not all the time.
Yeah.
And I think even like, when I have romantic encounters with people and I'm like sweet and sensitive and soft, they're like, what? You don't have a leather mask on constantly? And I'm like, well, actually, no. Like, sometimes for sure, but not all the time. And I think that there is such a disservice in the ways that women have been portrayed, just in the sense that it's not accurate.
Yeah.
Like, people in general, but especially women, like, I have a million versions of myself that are all unique and true and genuine and real and make up who I am. And I think that, obviously as artists, you get very pinned into like being one dimension, but I found that a lot with being a performer. Like, it blows people's minds when, I'm the person that draws up the contract and sends it to them. I'm the person that signs it. I'm the person that's funding it. I'm the bank. And then I'm also going to show up in like a G-string and do my little pop and lock and have and do a fucking great job.
Exactly.
And I watch men in the room have to confront their preconceived notions head on.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, they're seeing all of it not be true. Like, they're seeing that this person is doing multiple dimensions at once. They have to confront it. And every time it's always like this rarity or a surprise, and it's not rare.
Let me ask you this. That being said, I feel like from what I've heard, people tell me, women think that I'm intimidating and
Mm.
confident and this bitch. Men don't.
Interesting.
Men are like, can we fuck?
Mm.
Like,
Interesting.
men are not scared of me. The only man that has said that he's scared of me is one of my brothers.
Wow. That's
I'm
something
like,
else to unpack
finally.
later.
You know, but like every boyfriend I've ever had, when we're fighting, the guy will crack a fucking smile.
No way. Wait, when's your birthday?
I'm a Capricorn double Virgo.
You're petrifying. What are you
Thank
talking about?
you.
Are you kidding me?
But only women recognize the savagery. It's like men look at me and they're like, like they think I'm hilarious.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
I feel like I have different experiences than that just based on the context. Like,
yeah.
even, you know, we had a show in LA a few days ago, and
Yes.
they were setting up something, and it was not the way that it was supposed to be set up. And, you know, I said something and they were like, sorry, we're setting up for like this big show. And I was like, yeah, it's my show. So yeah, we're gonna change it to what I would like. And the only reason why it wasn't, they weren't trying to be like, you know, specifically nasty, but you know, I'm standing there in like a chainmail top and like a smoky eye and like really long fun hair, and they're like, this girl's not in charge. Little do they know. And so I think a lot of times it's context dependent. Like, I get treated very differently when I'm in a room full of men pitching something and showing them how the numbers are going to work out and pitching them something to invest in than I do when I'm like getting ready to go on a stage, which is why it's very important for me, for men that I'm working with, to see all of those steps, because it forces them to give me respect in every arena, not just the ones that make the most sense to them.
Yeah.
But
okay. Lately, when Selling Sunset came out,
love Selling Sunset.
Julia Fox, like Violet Benson, these women are powerful and they're dressing like Barbies. And I'm like, here's the deal, everybody. You can dress like that and still make money and be taken seriously.
Totally.
Like, that made me so excited, because I'm like, oh, okay, Y2K era. If you looked like Paris Hilton, you're a whore, you're dumb. Now it's like, oh, wait, they're selling $20 million homes.
Totally.
And wearing a mini skirt.
Yeah.
Like, is this cool
and a full
now?
beat.
Like, can we, you know? Yeah. And so I'm just waiting for men to catch on. Like, men see, like, they can dress like that, but you can't like try to touch their ass or their pussy. Like, do you understand that? Like, you have to like take a step back and take them seriously.
And you know what I think it is? I feel like because of my because I come off kind of like intense in the art that I make. I think people have this like idea of me that I'm very like, fuck men, I don't want them around me, fuck this, fuck that. And I actually don't feel that way. Yeah. And a lot of my favorite people to work with are men. A bunch of people that I make art with, that I produce these shows with, are my guy friends who I love so deeply and very deeply respect. I think the difference is it's about setting a bar. Like, I do not let them fall below the bar. And if they fall below the bar, they will not work with me ever again. Yeah. And they know that. Yeah. And any men that come in who treat me not as a complete equal, who don't treat me as the boss, who don't treat me with the utmost respect, they're the first ones to call out. Yeah. Like, my guys will be the first ones to go and say, like, you are not welcome here with that attitude. Yeah. And so I think a big part of it is like, you know, not necessarily outcasting men, but making the bar really strict. Of like, you're either going to be a part of this because you have basic respect and dignity and everything else, or you're not allowed. Right. And the job is not me to explain why that's the case. The job is on the other men around me to explain to their peers why they haven't been invited to the party. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And that's something that I've been really adamant about when like building just like even my peer group of like creative people to work with and creative people to bounce ideas off of. Like, and we've had a lot of those situations where, especially because like, you know, I perform in a full mocap suit, which means that like my visual guys, I have to be like butt naked while they tape me up with a bunch of wires and everything else. And it's like super vulnerable all the time. And they're mad protective of me. And like always go the extra mile and make sure I feel 100% comfortable. And we've been in situations where there's like a sound guy or a venue person or whatever else who says something super whack to me. And they're the first people to be like, absolutely not, because it's not my job.
You know what I dealt with last year? A woman who was running the set, and one of the lighting people, he was taking photos of me.
Wow.
Not that I really don't have like a big juicy ass, but but he was taking photos of my ass for whatever reason. Like he was literally like, yeah, baby. Like, and I had a breakdown on set, and she thought that I was being, and she was like, I really don't think that that was what you thought it was. Like, didn't believe me, wasn't there for me. And the other chick who was in charge of like everyone on set, she was like beyond angry.
Yeah.
Because the difference is this woman, it probably has never happened to her.
Mm.
And then here's this girl who runs festivals and like raves and da-da-da. And she's been through it probably multiple times, not only herself, but probably with her female friends.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she said, everything you are fucking feeling right now is valid. And what he did was fucking wrong.
Yeah. Well,
And she had my back. But it sucks when like other women don't believe other women.
yeah.
Or when they're not like a girl's girl. Like that's also an issue.
Well, I think we forget like this affects everyone. Like these structures affect everyone negatively. Like the same way that women are hurt by it, like men are really hurt by it too.
Yeah.
And women hurt each other by it as well. I mean, white women, we perpetuate so many things that are super, super problematic constantly. Like we are a lot of times the tip of the iceberg of a lot of the problems that we think we're solving, that we're actually perpetuating. Like
Yeah.
it goes so deep and it affects everyone. Which is why like it's frustrating when I think these conversations get like pinned in media or by like more religious, like, you know, right-wing people, that it's like this crazy like feminazi thing. It's like, no, this actually helps everyone. Like, and because it harms everyone right now. Like everyone is right now in real time being harmed. It's to help everyone. It's not like just for like me to feel better in my own like feminist sex positive bubble. Like that would be great, but it's like not actually even all about me. It's about so many other facets of people that we rarely even have a part of the conversation, because that is the issue. Like even as you know, as women in power, you're taught to like savor it and don't give it to anyone else. You're taught like you got through the door, like don't let it hit whoever's behind you, because you know they should fight as hard as you have. You see that all the time with like millennials in corporate culture, like millennial female bosses, right? Of like, I got fucked on my way up here, so now I'm gonna do the same to you. And it's not necessarily even out of like, you know, malintent. It's because we've been ingrained to think that way, which is why these concepts are like, they're so nuanced, like they're so complicated, but they affect everyone.
You know, I talked to my last guest about this because she brought up the fact that the reason why women don't get along is jealousy. And I disagree. I think women are just humans.
Yeah.
And I think that like depending on your upbringing and your zodiac sign or whatever the fuck is going on, not everyone is going to be friends or homies. But I think what women do need to work on is respect. Because it's not that we're like, of course, yeah, there's going to be some bitches that are jealous every once in a while. But I think we need to add in the fact that we all need to respect one another more and like be more aware of like how we speak to one another. Like with my girlfriends, I'm like, I'm hanging by a thread. This is what I need. I like, please check in with me. I'm going to check in with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just letting women know, like, I actually need you in my life, and making women feel needed and like.
There's something so silly that I do all the time. I box.
Yeah.
And boxing is such a weird sport, especially as a girl when you box, because you're either just like super hypersexualized by all the men around you, or like the women hate each other because it's like super competitive and awkward. And you know the feeling when you go into a workout class and you're like the two bitches going as hard in the front and you're like, oh, I could murder you with my bare hands, because you're just taught to feel that way.
No, I don't feel that way.
Well, every single time that I'm in a fucking workout class and like we're like going at it, it feels like I feel like this from playing travel soccer as a kid. Like the hottest girl who was like the best on the other team, like you hate, which is also probably like deep-rooted biphobic issues of other things that I'm unpacking. But what I've been doing is every time I go into a workout class or every time I am boxing,
Mhm.
whoever I'm next to, and I can see it, like it's always this like very tense interaction
Yeah.
at the beginning. I'll say like one thing. I'm like, I fucking love your shoes.
Right.
Or like, oh my God, I wish I wish I could work out to you like next to you every day. Like you're pushing me so hard. Like you're killing it right now. You're making me look so bad. I like want to up my game up. And it immediately disarms someone.
Yeah.
Because women are taught to go into spaces like battle ready, especially when you're around a bunch of other women. Like you're taught to compete, and like the tiniest little things of just giving a compliment or being like, I'm acknowledging how hard you're working, and I think it's commendable. I've made my best friends like
Yeah.
in workout classes, just
Yeah.
being like, you're fucking killing it. Shit.
Here's the deal with me. It's the opposite for me. And this sucks for me so badly because it turned me into like, I want everyone to like me. I want everyone to be my
Mm.
friend. I want to be a people pleaser, da 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 da. And I'm still like trying to like stop doing that. But when I walk into like the last workout class I walked into, I was so intimidated by the
Mm.
men. And I was just like, thank God CJ Sparks was there. I was like, CJ, I can't do this. And she's like, girl, I got you. It's cool. Don't feel that way. Like,
Yeah.
she immediately took me under her wing and I'm like, please protect me. Like, that's how I get with girls because it's the men that I have a fucking problem with.
Yeah.
I think it's because I did suffer sexual trauma with men at such an early age. And it's been like such a severe traumatic, like one guy after the other
Yeah.
that, like I feel like super hot men are
Mm.
literally the worst people on the planet.
I don't ever want to interact with super hot men. I have no desire to ever do that. Absolutely not. My new green flags in life with men are like you're over 30. You either don't know your dad or you have severe problems with him, and you're sober like successfully. They turn out great. Like you end up really probably respecting your mom. You've had to like do a lot of inner work if you're successfully sober. That shit is so much work and so much upkeep.
Yeah.
And over 30, like I don't have to raise you anymore.
Are you
I
sober?
hope. No.
I'm sober.
Okay, well, congrats.
But you
because
want the man to be sober?
I just think it's honestly such an amazing, like I think it's so incredible of a feat. Like that's so commendable to me. For sober people, I'm like, I'm so impressed. And I think it's so much internal work. Like, I'm like, yeah, green fucking light. Like you've done all the work. I don't have to therapize you. You've done it yourself.
Because men, when you drink, you feel like you can fucking manhandle us, control us, and they turn into monsters. I feel like I don't know one guy that drinks that is not a piece of shit. Literally. And the last guy I dated told me he was sober and lied.
Well, that's why I say successfully sober. I have to add that into my green flags.
Let's turn the ship around. Let's get into music. Let's get into production. You are a female producer. How did you learn? What programs are you learning? And then also everyone needs to know how Vaughn produces.
So I was a classical pianist.
Oh, wow.
As a kid. That was like my thing. And then actually a rapper at my high school, he was a security guard and a basketball coach in my high school. And my brothers played basketball. So he was like really close with our family and was so lovely. His name is Roy Lush and he's a lovely human being. And he was like, you play piano, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I need like a piano beat. Could you like make me a piano beat?
Oh my God.
And my thing, I always say yes to things and figure it out later, which has always been my like kind of fatal, but has turned into a good flaw to have.
Yeah.
So I was like, sure, I'll make you a piano beat. And then was like on like our school lab, like messing around and like, I guess it was GarageBand or whatever. And it was probably like the worst beat I've ever made. But I was like, oh, I really like this. This is a very specific part of my brain coming from a classical background where it feels so much more creative, but like I'm using more mathematical, linear parts of my artistic brain to figure this out. So I just really liked it. And from there, it was just like repetition. I love to emphasize that I didn't have a lot of tools. I think that there's this big perceived barrier to entry. Like you need to have all the gear, or you need to have like the fanciest hardware, or you have to have access to like the most expensive studio. And that's just not true.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those things, yeah, of course, can like emphasize the quality of something or make it cool, but they actually don't have to. And I, ended up going to NYU for music production. And I was very often the only girl in my production classes. And I found, quite often my guy friends would just like sit and geek about gear all day, which was
So
fine.
true. Ugh.
Which was fine, but like I was like, the beats are kind of trash. Like, that's great that you have all this fancy shit. You don't know how to do anything with it. And I'm a big, big proponent of like, if you don't know how to create with the most basic sense of tools,
Mhm.
you're probably not as good as you think you are.
Mhm.
If you need all the fancy stuff to get going, it's probably out of fear and insecurity that you feel that way.
Mhm.
It's my biggest thing that I tell a lot of women who are like, I feel like I can't start because I don't know or because I don't have access or whatever else. It's like, that's a myth. That is not true.
Yes.
You can get a cracked version of Fruity Loops
Mhm.
and make incredible music.
Yeah.
It's literally just fuck around and find out.
Mhm.
That is the best way to learn.
Another thing I want to say with ADD, it is about desire.
Totally.
And with this show, like I had to learn DaVinci Resolve 18 to edit the episodes. And I'm like, I love it.
Totally.
And I feel like it's the universe going, see, if you can do this, you can do Ableton, you can do Logic. Like,
Totally.
I just had to get over my trauma that was connected to Pro Tools. And it's like, leave that behind.
Yeah.
Like, cut it all off. Like, erase it from your brain, start over. And it's true, ladies, like, you can do this.
It's everything is 10,000 hours. Like any new skill set
Yes.
is just putting in your 10,000 hours. So like you can't bypass time. You can buy the fanciest shit. You can buy like the nicest mic or the best interface or whatever else. You can't bypass having to put in your 10,000 hours.
Yep.
No one can bypass that step.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like all you can do is just sit down and get started.
Yeah.
That's literally the only barrier to entry is just like fucking around and finding out. I mean, the amount of like songs I've made with voice memos that I've turned into things like you can make with the most simplistic tools. And oftentimes when your toolbox is restricted, you develop so much more advanced skills because you have to. It's out of necessity.
Yeah.
And so yeah, when I got to NYU, I kind of dove headfirst into like really wanting to be a producer. And was just kind of bored and like thinking of weird ways to do stuff. And I've always been like a throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks kind of person, like no idea is too crazy.
Yeah.
And I was really into sound design and I was like a tech nerd and I was a PA at our school studios and I loved to like dissect how things worked. And I was like, I want to just like find a way to make sound waves that other people don't have.
Before the vibrator thing
Yeah.
came into play, which I'll explain. She'll explain. Did you have any weird or fucked up experiences with men sexually? Or
I mean, I feel like, of course. I mean,
you did?
of course.
I mean, not every girl gets assaulted or raped. I mean, I was, but
yeah, I think that like I definitely have had so many experiences that I didn't realize were weird until later in my life, which I think is a thing that oftentimes happens, especially when you come from a town where I was from, where it was very much like just a super toxic, heteronormative, like toxically masculine,
Yeah.
aggressive space. You don't realize things are fucked up until you're like reflecting on them.
That's so
later in your
important to
life.
say. Like, ladies, if you're not sure if you were taken advantage of, you were. Like, if you're questioning it at all and it doesn't feel right, that was not cool what he did to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like I think my body was moving a little bit faster than my brain was, which I'm really grateful for. Like my body had my back. I didn't really like set out to make like a sex positive statement. It just kind of happened that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being this thing that I was like, convinced was this mission statement I wanted to make for other people.
Yeah.
Or people like came from a town like I did, or people that were confused like I was. And really it just became like a huge healing aspect for me.
Yeah.
Like that was how I healed with things. Like I was not the friend that talked about masturbation. I was not the friend that talked about pleasure. I was not the friend that talked about communication. And all of a sudden I'm making music this way. I had to talk about it.
Yeah.
I couldn't talk about making music without forcing myself to talk about these things. So I kind of like locked myself into having to move through it.
Yeah.
And then I kind of slowly became the person that everyone started coming to talk about these things because I had been the poster child for like, she must be kind of comfortable.
So can you explain the vibrator?
Yes. So,
Okay.
so this company called Lioness, it was my junior year of college. and the word sex tech was like still very new as an industry. And I literally just for my own like personhood really wanted to learn more about it and just be able to talk more comfortably about these concepts. So I was just hitting up anyone I could find who had worked in like a quote unquote sex tech space, and asked them to like get coffee. Because if I'm around people that can talk about these things comfortably, hopefully it will rub off on me. And I ended up stumbling across this company, Lioness, and Liz, who started Lioness, was just like super nice. And I was like, hey, I see you guys have a Bluetooth vibrator. So it's like a Fitbit, basically. And there's internal sensors that track contractions over time and then deliver it to like an app on your phone.
Wow.
So I was like, I think I can hack your tech if you'd be comfortable with that. And they were like, yeah, game. Let us know if you figure it out.
Amazing.
And I did. So I basically—
And is Lioness woman owned?
Yeah.
Of course.
Lioness is amazing. Shout out Lioness. They're so lovely, and they've been so supportive of any weird shit I've ever wanted to do, which is really cool because not all companies are, especially in tech. And so yeah, now I make all of my music with orgasm wave patterns that I convert into sound waves and do sound design from there. And it really just started as like I wanted to fuck around from like an engineering standpoint. I just thought it was interesting, and it's really turned into like a quite lovely Trojan horse where I can't talk about my music to people without talking about this thing that has become really important to me.
Yes. And sex tech, just so you guys know, it doesn't just mean sex toys. Like,
no, not at all.
Sex
not
tech
at all.
Is everything. It's your phone, because people who are watching porn on their phone, I mean, that's sex technology. Like, all of it.
I tell people like there is a lot of stigmas around sex tech, that it's like very anti-human and very like surgical and sterilized, and it's like these toys that are robotic, and it's all about being alone, and like it's hurting human experience. And anyone who actually works in developments in sex tech or is deeply ingrained in these really exciting new technologies knows that like the only goal is to enhance real human connection. That is the main goal. That's the main purpose. That's the main mission. And for me, you know, becoming more deeply ingrained with these technologies has only made my real life relationships 10 times better. And that's like the biggest goal. Sex tech is any technological advancement that aims to help us either better understand, better enjoy, or better talk about human sexuality, which regardless of what your, you know, sexual preferences or non-preferences are, human sexuality is so innate to us. It should be something that we talk about like as health all the time.
So let me just like blow your mind for a second here. I think I was reading one of your interviews. I know that like a huge percentage of women have a hard time orgasming.
Totally.
Now, historically, sex toys have helped women orgasm. For bitches like me, who I can orgasm so easily.
That's so nice.
Which is a huge problem.
Interesting.
Because whoever I have sex with, they're thinking, yeah, I'm the shit. I made her come 20 times. And it's like, bitch, no, that's how I was born. And so in regard to that, for women like me who need to literally disengage. And like right now I'm not having sex. Like, I'm good. I don't want to fuck right now. I really don't. Maybe in like 6 months I'll probably be ready again. But for women like me, it's like the orgasm is not the issue. For me, it's like, oh, maybe you need to revert to a toy to stay the fuck away from a real live human.
Well, I'm so happy that you said that though, because I think that is important to note, like that we have very opposite experiences.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had any type of sex without a vibrator in like years.
Yeah.
Like I actually don't even think like if I go out and I think I'm gonna have a one night stand, I have one in my bag.
Yeah.
Like
wow.
I'm like, that's a prereq for me, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's necessary.
Yes.
And
totally.
I think that there is this like this notion that, you know, people just learn about female body genitalia and then they've mastered it.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, no, every body is different. So it's not about like, you know, you have a great time with one partner and then you're good to go. The communication is something that should happen with every single person.
Yeah.
And it should be ongoing, because also people change as time goes on. I know for me, like, you know, I was dealing with an assault situation that happened a few months ago, and it's totally changed things that I like. It's totally changed things that I need boundaries about, that pre-existing partners for those that entire span of time, we have to have completely new conversations. So it's not just like, you know, once you master female body genitalia, you're good. Like No,
No
you're not.
way.
And that's the biggest thing I've learned also from having sex with women, because women are so much more like that's ingrained in us to communicate
Yeah.
so much more openly. And you realize everybody's a different body. And I think that we're not taught to communicate in general, let alone continuously.
Yes. Yeah. So what toy should I try? 'Cause I mean, okay, so back in the day I wanted to learn anal, and so I got like a big pink dildo,
Of course.
and I like definitely put in the work and you know became really great at anal, and like I'm over that. Like it's cuz I am such a Capricorn that I'm like,
You are such a
set the
Capricorn.
goal, achieve the goal, like,
Yeah.
do it
Yeah.
perfectly, do it right, do it correctly. But now I'm kind of like, okay, wait, I need to have a relationship with myself at home. Like I
Yeah.
need to be able to feel sexually satisfied by myself without, God, again, I wish I was a lesbian.
But this is, I think, part of like also one of the biggest issues. Like, we're not taught to self-explore
Yeah.
at all.
Well, I mean, I can masturbate and that's great. But I just mean like I'm bored with like just my
Well,
hand.
because that's what I mean. Like, there are so many opportunities to learn like what you like alone and to
Yeah.
cultivate like actually like a really like loving, intimate relationship with yourself, which
Yeah.
sounds silly to people, but it's
No,
not. It's
not
really
at all.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And it only makes you, you know, more easily able to enjoy
Yeah.
other scenarios. Like, one of the biggest things that I get asked is like, hey, I know I'm not enjoying sex with this person, or I know that it could be better, but I don't even know how to begin to know what I want,
Yeah.
because I've never even asked myself that. What do I even say? I don't know. I don't know what I actually want to change, but something's got to give, because it's not it.
Yeah.
You know? And so like those things are so important.
Have you ever dealt with a guy that has like coke dick or drank too much and he has whiskey dick?
I mean, I went to college, so of course.
Well, the last person I interviewed, she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Bitch." So what do we tell men that like I just dealt with a person that his dick was not fully hard and he thought he was killing the game, and I'm like, someone needs to tell him.
I think that there are so many, like, there's just such a lack of transparency because we don't talk about these things in general,
Yeah.
that so many people don't know things that are like super important.
But would you tell the guy? Like, would you say something to him?
So I've definitely been in a lot of situations where I feel like I'm a big post-game, pre-game chat gal.
Okay.
So like literally, I'm also a Taurus.
Okay.
So I'm like, I go,
Taurus is my most compatible.
yeah, we get each other.
Yes.
We very much get each other. So like if I go on like a date, or if I'm in an encounter that seems like it could be a date, like I'm a very like, I ask, what is the vibe?
Okay.
And then I give like 5 options. I would literally be like, so what's the vibe? Do you want to kiss me? Do you want to go home with me? Do you want to be my friend? Do you want to stay here and talk? Is it a combination of anything 1 through 5? Go. And they're like, and most people are like, that's insane. What? And I'm like, great. I'm probably going to be too much for you anyway. So done. But people that can respond and are great and give me like their 1 through 5 answer, we get the ball rolling, and
Love
it's
it.
great.
Yeah.
I think that there are so many ways to do like pre-game, post-game chats where you're recognizing that it's still a very vulnerable situation for someone.
Yeah.
Like, it's super sensitive, and it's really hard to not take things very personally because it
course.
feels very personal.
Yeah.
And so something that I've really tried to get good at is how to welcome and give feedback and potentially critique, always in a compliment sandwich.
Yes.
Always. Because you don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable.
No.
You know? Or like,
Totally
there's
not.
definitely been times like, I'm a Lexapro gal.
Okay.
Love Lexapro.
Oh, and it can ruin your libido.
I was on Zoloft first, and it murdered it.
Okay.
Like, murdered it.
Yeah.
I've had that experience. Okay, so I've had that experience with a lot of different people of like their med cocktail, or if they drink, or if like they're stressed at work, or whatever it is. Like, you're always potentially in a different headspace, and you can't always be privy to what that's going to be.
Yeah.
Of just like holding space for grace and holding space for comfort. And my biggest thing is like, casual does not mean disrespect. I will have the most blunt, specific conversations with a one-night stand as I would with like a 2-year-long partner. And I'm not weird for doing that. I'm not clingy. I'm not taking it too seriously. I'm not making it too deep.
Yeah.
I'm demanding basic respect for myself because we're obviously in a very personal situation, regardless if it's like casual or not.
See, if the guy is like, babe, I'm sorry, like, da 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 da, then I'm like, honey, it's all good. We'll work through it. Like, I feel like mom, like, I feel like I can, like, take care of the
Yeah.
person through the situation. But if the guy's like, yeah, like, keep going, and I'm just like, does anyone
Is
else
anyone
see?
seeing
Yeah,
this?
like, hello. I don't want to keep sucking your dick.
Well, I feel like that's also a big thing of like men are very much taught like if I can't perform, I'm not worth anything.
Yes, it's so sad.
I was listening. Oh shit, I'm gonna forget her name. She's some sex therapist, and she was talking about on some podcasts of like how to maintain intimacy over time. And she was like, something that I tell all of my couples that I'm seeing is like every single night before you go to sleep, you should make out and do nothing else
Wow.
and just make out and go to bed.
Okay.
And I was like, that's so cute. And she's like, because we're programmed that intimacy only is like the all or nothing.
Yeah.
And especially men are taught like I either perform or I'm not worth anything to this person.
Yeah.
Going back to the fact that this affects everyone, all of these stigmas. And so that's been very interesting. I've been trying to do that in my own personal life of like planning moments of physical intimacy that are not only centered around coming, are not only centered
Yes.
around, having sex with someone. Like they're centered around feeling safe and getting to know someone and feeling like, someone is being sensitive towards you and compassionate and caring. And again, all that can still happen under a casual context too. But we've really been taught like end all be all from and finishing scenes in film and TV and porn. And like, that's not realistic. Like we're on meds, we're stressed, we're like dealing with shit. Like that's not everyone's not always just down to fuck and have it go beautifully. Like, that's not how life works.
I know. Like, of course I want to have moments where we just hang out. Like guys, if you're like trying to ask me out on a date, I'm not all about the fucking, okay? Let's talk about your show because I want to do inserts with like photos and videos really quick.
Love.
So venue, where was it?
We did it at Catch One.
Catch One.
Which was super cool.
Yes.
Super fun. And it was our first time ever doing a show in LA.
Amazing.
Yeah, which was super fun.
And when you say we, you mean like Vaughn?
I mean myself, Vaughn, and then Bloody Mary is the show that we throw. And it's like 10 of my best friends. 2 of which do live visuals, Alex and Rob. Benny does playback and is an amazing DJ. Sarah, Haley, and Rachel are like psychotic dancers. And Madison, who's like our Bloody Mary hype man / my best friend. And half of them are old Craigslist roommates. Half of them are people I met like clubbing in Berlin. Like
Amazing.
I met Benny in high school. Like they're all just friends.
Wow.
And I care about them so much. And we make so much of our friendship is just we sit around in a circle and like pitch the wackest ideas and then figure out how we can make it work. And this was a big one. So it was fun. Like everyone was in an Airbnb together. Like I flew all them out here. And it was really, really special and really lovely.
Dude, dear Netflix, you guys need to do a show on this immediately, okay? Like, I would watch this.
That's so interesting. I'm like, if Netflix, if you're listening.
God, that would be amazing.
We would totally answer.
Because musicians need to see more examples of what it's like to work with people that are actually taking care of you and protecting you.
Well, it's been very interesting because, I've been doing Bloody Mary now for 2 years. And Bloody Mary is completely self-funded. We have no agent. We have no managers. The team is literally just my friends.
It's amazing.
Which is super lovely. But I'm interfacing with pretty big agencies and other big management teams for the artists that I'm booking.
Yeah.
And it's very fascinating, like, being privy to the contracts that I'm being given and the agreements I'm being asked to sign. And one of my biggest red flags, which I also tell to my students at NYU, I'm like, if anyone says, oh, that's just industry standard, run.
Yes.
So I've been given tons of contracts by like big agencies. Well, I'll respond and be like, that has to get taken out. I'm not doing that. Absolutely not. And they're like, well, then they're not going to do the show. I'm like, well, they're not going to do the show.
Amazing.
And oftentimes people are like, okay, fine, we'll make, push something around for you. But I think that working with my friends has given me like really the confidence to ask for what I want.
And you don't have an attorney?
No.
Damn.
What I do is, I don't know if I can like say this, but when we've contracted or been almost about to contract pretty big people from bigger agencies. So I will get a copy, at least in the First Amendments, of their contracts.
Yeah.
So I just scalp it.
Yeah.
So I just use these larger agency contracts for myself and change the jargon around for it to be under my name.
That's amazing.
But I'm like, why would I give someone 20% when like I'm doing it?
Yeah.
Like, for what?
Yeah.
And half the agents I'm talking to, like, I mean, most have been very, very, very lovely. Some have been literally so stupid. So I'm like, why would I give away a percentage when I could give it to my friends, ultimately, also? And we don't have to give up any creative control. We don't have to give up, like, we don't have to give up anything. Like,
Yeah.
it's really just us and it's our brainchild. And that feels really nice.
And you have a publishing company for music.
So yeah, I have an LLC that I run everything through,
Yeah.
which is really helpful for tax purposes when you're a freelancer. It's really helpful for like, I mean, I just turned 26 for insurance. It's very helpful to be able to document your income.
Yeah.
It's very helpful for if you are contracting people for other, from other agencies. Like, you usually need some kind of entity to be taken seriously. Having an LLC has given me that.
Well, the reason why I bring that up is because all of you songwriters need to have your writer ID and your publisher ID numbers.
Yeah.
Both of them. And a lot of writers don't know about the publisher ID
And you're
number.
missing out on a lot of money.
Yes.
You're missing out on 50% of your money.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, so we need to wrap it up. Sadly. God, I need 2 more hours with you. Jesus Christ. Do you have a podcast yet?
Not yet.
Okay, we'll start one so that we can
we can keep chatting.
Yes. There's so much I want to say. Okay, so this is the Cardsy B deck, and we're going to read our fortunes for this week.
I'm kind of nervous.
I love Cardsy B. Her real name's Rebecca. Her book is amazing.
What do I pick?
Just whatever card you're feeling. What did you get?
I got 10 of Cups.
Ooh. I got 5 of Pentacles. I got 2 women.
Wait, so what? Happy
Okay.
Pride!
Oh my God, this is so powerful. Okay,
What does this mean?
What is yours again?
10 of Cups.
Cup.
2 little dogs.
What cup are you? 10. Okay. Design duo and badass couple. The Blondes.
Oh, love? Okay.
Represent the loving balance that is the 10 of Cups. This card represents fulfillment in love, work, and home life. Basically, this card is living the dream.
Oh.
It stands for abundant joy, connectedness, and fulfillment.
I'm ready whenever you are.
Like, oh my God. The Blondes, we are shouting you out. We want to do a custom costume design collab. Please, immediately. Okay, what is this? 5 of Pentacles. Okay. The 5 of Pentacles teaches us that misfortune, great, is an opportunity to reprioritize.
Totally.
The Countess may have previously placed her focus on external rewards. Through adversity, she learns the value of inner strength and the support she has. The Countess.
Wow.
Financial hardship, adversity, and struggle. And the reversal is renewed courage and priority shift. And I will be a millionaire, so stop.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my God.
Manifest.
Okay, everyone needs to go follow Vaughn immediately. I was literally glued to your YouTube and Spotify for like the past week.
Thank you.
Follow her on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram. Buy a ticket to her next show so that you can open your mind and get inspired and educate yourself on the beauty of sex and performance and the power of a woman. And yeah, anything else you want to add?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
I appreciate you.
Yes, this was episode 8 of House of Royale. Bye.